know I do, to make it through the times we had. I see it now, I see it now. Real love, now I'll break through to show to you that I'm more good than I am bad. I work it out, I work it out. And I'll be somewhere that you need me, and I'll be holding my breath, waiting for you to show. Afraid to say real love. Now I see you, and I'll make it through to find the life that we once had. I see it now, I feel it now. Real love, now I see you, yeah, you know I do, to make it through the times we had. I see it now, I see it now. Now I'll break through to show to you that I'm more good than I am bad. I work it out, I work it out. And I'll be somewhere that you need me, and I'll be holding my breath, waiting for you to show.
Welcome to the live stream. I recognized fast enough that the mic wasn't on. I talked for a split second. How's everybody doing? Just give me some feedback on the sound. I'm hoping it's good because we know that I'm not a sound guy. Audio is not my thing. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but for some reason, 9 out of 10 BlockRoots streams have some kind of mishap with the audio. All right, so just give me a sound check real quick. I'll pop the chat out. Got a handful of people in here. Go ahead and hit that like button, as we hate to say, but need to say. Welcome to the stream. If you're new, we'll get it started. In a minute or two. How's everybody doing? It's been a little while since done a stream. I like the amount of people that we have in here. That's good. It means that I still get some love, even though I'm a bit more absent recently. You know, Josh and myself, we are full-time traders, so we spend most of our time trading, and you know, that has its drawbacks. You can't put out a ton of content. So now's the time to strike while the iron's hot. And during the bear market, we'll have plenty of time to talk about all the things that you should consider moving forward. But I'm happy to be here. For anyone who's new, my name is Ryan, aka CanteringClark. My partner is Josh Rager. You probably follow us on Twitter. If you don't, check us out. We have the BlockRoots platform, which is primarily a trader education resource. We get into market profile and order flow. That's our bread and butter. That is what we have an entire course developed and dedicated to. And then we also have a Discord community. It's a vibrant Discord community. It stays pretty focused on that subject matter. But Josh is as I've said before, a killer in DeFi and alts. So, you know, he really packs a punch and brings it with that regard. So we have a nice community. We do have a newsletter. We don't show these things too often. I like to keep things kind of intimate, honestly. You know, we make most of our money trading, so it's not like we need the subscriptions, but it is nice, and we did put some work into it a while back, but again, it's a finished product. So, you know, we do live streams, and we are adding to it. But yeah, that's BlockRoots. You can follow us on Twitter as well. I'm going to get into a few things in the stream. Let me say hi to everybody. Last minute, I decided I'm going to give away some Bitcoin during the stream. You know, we do a lot of giveaways. I'm going to find out exactly how many giveaways I've done this year when it comes time to visiting with the accountant. You know, a lot of the times it's like a trick question or a trivia question, or you know, random giveaway. We'll select a random person from the comments. Today, I actually want to reward unique questions. You know, you get a lot of during these streams, you get a lot of the same, which is, you know, is this going to go up? Is this going to go down? And as you can imagine, guys, like my inbox is full of messages like that, And, you know, you can't expect to be spoon-fed, honestly. And then you shouldn't want to be, because if you try to follow someone else's lead, ultimately you're going to get wrecked where you least expect it, and maybe they expect it. You know, maybe they have a system that they're used to taking 10 trades and losing 5, and you're jumping in on their second loss in a row. And, you know, it's more important than anything else that you learn on your own. And the access that you have to resources right now is incredible. And even though we have BlockRoots, which is $49 a month, I tell people right away, like, I don't even like to, people say, like, where can I learn to trade? And I'm like, I don't like to say, like, come to BlockRoots. I like to say, hey, like, spend a long time taking advantage of the free stuff. Because you could, if you do your work on the internet, you could get access to the paid shit for free. So try to hop the fence. You know, like when you're a kid and you want access to, I don't know, a ballpark or anything where you're not supposed to be. You know, when you're young, you could get away with breaking, I would say you could get away with breaking and entering. You know, exploring abandoned properties, who knows, right? You don't wait to be let in. You try to figure out a way around it, okay? So try to cheat the system in that regard, okay? Try to take advantage of all the free stuff that you can, and start small, all right? Don't try to jump into the what is, I think, a lot more complicated than, starting off on maybe something like Baby Pips or YouTube or the basics. Okay, start from the ground up. Okay, so we're gonna give away. I'm gonna give away some Bitcoin in this stream. I'm gonna give away. Let's say we're gonna give away $200 in Bitcoin. I'm gonna split it up 4 ways though. So I'm gonna give 4 different people $50 in Bitcoin, and just to get this out of the way in the beginning, so that you know like what the play is. The best questions are gonna get awarded. So don't ask a million questions, right? Think of a good question. Ask me a question, and I'm going to go through at the end and pick the ones that I deem to be the best questions. And then go ahead and find me on Twitter. If I pick you, send me a message. We'll validate that it's you. Send you $50 in Bitcoin. Hopefully, it's $100 a year from now. Wink, wink. Right. So let me say hi to everybody, and then we're going to get into the stream. What's up, Cornholio? Cornholio always in the #1 spot. Chomping at the bit, finger on the mouse before the stream even starts. Frog the Frog, what's going on? Connected, BCIS, Wood Dog, Nice Groove, Sup. What's up, Keld? Yeah, Keld, that was, so Keld and I follow each other off of Twitter. We don't like to dox too much, though. But, Keld, that was a Ferrari Roma, which is on the list. So, Carlos, what's going on? David, Ross, Fahad, Swift Academy, all right. Hadley, BBICS. Kieran, what's going on? CryptoFollow, all right. I'm just saying hi to everybody. Ripcord, what's up, man? Heisenberg Principle. Let's see. Nordy by Nature. Okay. Brick City here in New York City. Yeah. New York friend. Yeah, it is cold. But yesterday was really nice, honestly. So I was out in Nassau yesterday. And it was actually really nice, which makes my wife happy because she didn't get, one of the horses doesn't have horseshoes on yet, so she couldn't take him out on trail. So she was really happy that yesterday was nice because the ground was soft. She didn't have to really worry about anything. But yeah, it is cold as hell in New York. Not as cold as Texas, though, right? And at least in New York, it's expected. Okay, so Bitcoin to 100K. I honestly, I think that that's a really strong possibility. I think that it's not hard to, it sounds, months ago this didn't sound, it sounded lofty, right? Bitcoin to 100K now sounds honestly like a given, as crazy as that sounds. And you guys know, like, coming from me, for anyone who's followed the stream, like, we are not sensational whatsoever. We don't, like, scatter our YouTube thumbnails with stupid predictions and dog shit, as I'll call it. We don't put our faces on it with big emotional expressions to try to get everyone's attention. So if I say Bitcoin to 100K, it's because I genuinely think that Bitcoin's going to 100K. And I don't think that that's, again, a lofty expectation, or I don't think that that's a valuation that is outside the realm of possibilities in the next 2 years. So put it that way. Okay. Connected, Peter. Talk about skew. So that's awesome, Peter, because you're... yeah, I'm actually going into skew. So during the stream, I actually already have the Genesis volatility platform up. So we're going to talk about that. Okay. And not just skew, but there's some other options metrics right now that are showing that the market's kind of cool with where the price is. So at these elevated levels, the market's actually not overly excited, even though you couldn't tell if you were trading on somewhere like Bybit or some of the bigger derivatives exchanges. Does my horse invest? No. My wife invests in horses, though. Every day I'm getting pictures of new horses as if we have room for them, right? But there's just a little bit of a heads up. We want to continue to expand, and obviously we have plans to purchase a big property, but that obviously comes with limitations. My wife's plan is to adopt horses from a place called, I think it's called Rerun, which is essentially, we have a bunch of horses obviously already, but she has more room for them. She always has room mentally for them. But there's a place called Rerun, which is thoroughbreds that used to be racehorses. And these are like horses that have actually raced in the Kentucky Derby. And the adoption fees for them are actually not ridiculous whatsoever. You just have to provide them with a good home. So I'm always getting a message. If she's out and about and she's on her phone looking at one, I'll get the message. And it's like a sad face and she wants the horse, right? So sure, it is enough. So talk about Shroom, absolutely. Josh Rager, all right. Okay. All right. So I think we are. Fawnship, what's up, man? I think we are. I think I've said hi to almost everybody. Wow, there's a lot of people that I didn't say hi to. I'm sorry. So X Factor, Greg. Okay, 50K is the new normal. Seems like it so far. All right. So let's talk about two important things that I think are worth noting. And I want to try to keep the stream somewhat structured. I noticed that I'm like, I'm a talkative New York guy, right? I could get really off on a tangent. And like I say, I speak in ellipses. I start a point and then I make a big circle. I forget it. I got to get back to the point, right? It's just the way that I am. So I want to talk about, one, the reason why I am very confident long term. And two, I want to talk about a specific metric with regards to Grayscale. Then we're going to talk about Bitcoin technicals. Specific Bitcoin market generated technicals. We'll talk about option skew, for example. And then, sorry, I'm chewing on cinnamon gum. And it's just lost its flavor. And then we're going to talk about Ethereum and some of the pairs that I've actually gotten into recently. And I'm in a lot of DeFi pairs now. And for those of you who've been following along for a really long time, you know that I am primarily a professional Bitcoin trader, right? So I did not dabble in all too much whatsoever prior to this bull market. On and off at, for good opportunities when they arose. But I trade Bitcoin and I've never had a problem generating a lot of yield from doing that. So, okay. All right. That's a really nice name for a bakery, Thoroughbred. All right. So first things first, MicroStrategy. This is a reason why I think that you have to have a long bias, right? There's no more fading. There's no more like fading the corporates or fading public media sentiment and developments that are occurring. The concept is a lot of times like one of the mistakes that's made and it's applied like as if it's always the norm is that like someone like Goldman Sachs comes out and they rate a stock, say it's a buy, it's a sell, overweight, right, underweight. And people will take that as a contrarian signal. Goldman Sachs says to buy such and such, or maybe Morgan Stanley says it, and then next thing you know, over the course of the next month, that particular asset's, underperforming, and people are saying, oh, well, Goldman Sachs was really looking for exit liquidity. That was the top, blah, 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 blah. Bitcoin, you have to remember that we're all so involved in crypto that we forget we're in a little echo chamber, right? It's so small. So when we see outside people recognizing the importance of the crypto market, it's almost like we're forgetting how small we are. And we're looking at it as if we're already at scale with the greater traditional market. So I think there's actually, and I'll call this, there's a sense of, what do we want to call it? A sense of imposter syndrome by crypto holders and crypto traders, where it's like now we're finally being validated and people are maybe getting a little iffy about it, right? Oh my God, there's new bigger players coming in. This might be a top signal. No, these people don't get involved for, they don't get involved for 1 6-month time frames, even yearly time frames. Right? They get involved for the long run. For I'd like to say 2 years and up. Okay, at least a year. Okay, to generate the position, get into the position, then they're going to pump their own bags. All right, for a while, and then they'll offload. But they don't have a high time preference. Okay, they have low time preference. They're not concerned with what Bitcoin does this week, next month. If they're getting involved and they're putting all this capital behind it, you could bet that it's with high expectations. So you did front run the masses, and what did that come at? It came at a cost. You at Thanksgiving, the joke, you look stupid to your family members when you're talking about Bitcoin for the last couple of years. Well, that was because you bared the risk early on that early investors are paid for in the long run, right? You're paid that risk premium in the long run for being willing to stick your neck out there. So MicroStrategy, again, 600 million, 900 million, whatever the value is. I think this is the most recent one. 900 million debt issuance. Okay, so just to really make this as simple as possible without getting into the fundamentals. MicroStrategy was by all means, a company that was not employing really any leverage whatsoever. Didn't really have any debt. Okay, decent amount of equity, really no debt. So their debt to equity ratio was really attractive for them to raise debt. Okay, think about it like, you're someone who doesn't have a ton of credit cards maxed out. All right. You have good credit leading up to that point. You have a good job. You have good income. Companies are going to want to send you credit cards and extend you a line of credit. All right. So again, just to oversimplify this before anyone takes this literally. But MicroStrategy had a low debt to equity ratio, right? Or rather, they had low debt relative to their equity. So their debt to equity ratio was very attractive in that sense. Okay. So they have been able to raise debt, right? And to issue debt, normally this would, when a company has a balance sheet, they keep it in cash reserves. They deploy it in any way they seem fit. MicroStrategy has a mandate that they do not have cash, so they convert it to Bitcoin. So the reason why I'm laughing is because MicroStrategy has almost become, you call it a perpetual motion machine, maybe a feedback loop for Bitcoin to generate Bitcoin's own higher prices by it partaking in this particular approach, right? Where what's happening is MicroStrategy issues debt. All right, let's talk about a while back they did it. Issues debt. All right, they buy Bitcoin. Okay, they still don't. They're not leveraged by any means compared to a lot of other companies. They buy Bitcoin. People in traditional markets that don't have access to Bitcoin, maybe through red tape, there are traditional asset managers. There's some restrictions. Maybe people are just afraid of the counterparty risk. And they are like, fuck that. I don't want to be on a crypto exchange. But there are trades that are in traditional markets that are, see how relaxed I'm getting, I'm just leaning back. There are trades that are proxies for Bitcoin, Mara, GBTC at a premium, any kind of mining company, any kind of company that's attaching their name blockchain. Proxies meaning, you're not playing Bitcoin directly. You're not warehousing your own Bitcoin, right? There's no inventory on your part. You're buying a stock that is correlated to Bitcoin's performance, okay? Probably to a certain degree. I was going to say overthrows to the upside maybe and has a higher beta to the downside as well. So MicroStrategy share price goes up, okay? Bitcoin's going up, right? MicroStrategy share price goes up. What does MicroStrategy do at that point? At that point, they have an even more attractive debt to equity ratio. So what they do is they issue more debt, and this time at 0%, right? So they do that. They buy more Bitcoin. Bitcoin price goes up. MicroStrategy stock price goes up. What is MicroStrategy going to do? They don't keep cash on the balance sheet. They just continue to buy Bitcoin. So you can tell that MicroStrategy needed to have a corporate conference because someone else needs to come and prop it up behind them, right? This is the massive greater fool theory. MicroStrategy doesn't want to be left with the bill, clearly. They're getting MicroStrategy threw themselves on the line, right? Everything they had to be the initial spark and hopefully what is a much longer moving machine. But this is incredible, and you don't fade this because MicroStrategy has not bought Bitcoin yet. So you don't fade when someone is going to buy 14,000 worth of Bitcoin. Okay, it might not show up yet, but that's going to have a significant amount of market impact. They're not using limit orders on Coinbase, right? They're not getting it all on OTC. They are, from what I'm expecting, going to probably TWAP in with, they're going to TWAP, right? Time weighted average price. Now, might be a little bit more trouble at higher prices where it seems like right now we have a little less liquidity. So TWAPing is better when the books are really thick because what you're doing is marketing it over time. But who knows? The point is they're taking a large amount of supply off a market that has a very low float to begin with. And the whole name of this game, which it is, I think, is there's a lot of arguments for Bitcoin, obviously. I'm being facetious. But the name of the game is scarcity. Scarcity. What did I just say? I don't know. That's the name of the game, right? There's only so many to go around. I don't care what your narrative is. Your narrative is just as justified in saying that billionaires like collectibles and Bitcoin is like a Veblen good in that sense. You don't own a Bitcoin. I have an estate in, in Versailles and I have 2,000 Bitcoin. You just see where this is, there's so many narratives that help it move up, okay? And this in particular is an actual buyer in the market. So it's not just a narrative where we're buying on the hope. We know that there's a material impact that's going to happen on price. And if anything, you have a good reason to think that we currently have a really good floor, right? All right. So who knows when the loop stops? All right. So that is MicroStrategy. And let me get my mouse to work again because apparently the Bluetooth thing just deactivated. So I got to lean down and get this guy going again. MicroStrategy moving up with Bitcoin. So like I said, MicroStrategy stock price goes up because Bitcoin's going up. Then MicroStrategy buys Bitcoin, and then MicroStrategy stock price goes up. Now, recently, MicroStrategy's stock price has had some type of drawdown, excuse me. But the rest of the market is starting to pull back, and MicroStrategy is actually a higher beta stock. So it's what is it? A 1.6, 1.4. 5-year monthly beta. So, consider that, let's say that for every 1% move in the S&P 500, MicroStrategy moves up 1.4%, right? This is not the precise, this is not precise. This is not saying that always happens. But this is just a measure of risk. And to the downside, that occurs as well. So the S&P 500 moves down, 1%, and MicroStrategy probably has more downside capture than the S&P. Okay, higher beta stocks usually have more downside capture. If you find a higher beta stock that has more upside capture, less downside capture, then congratulations, right? Okay, so that looks really good. We have our machine that is willing to carry us up even further. Have to be grateful. Let's leave this. So I got the MicroStrategy stuff out of the way. Grayscale, Grayscale premium. All right, so Grayscale's premium to net asset value. So Grayscale GBTC stock price, the amount that it trades over the actual asset, right? So the underlying asset. In this case, we're talking about Bitcoin. But I know the term NAV or net asset value might confuse some people. So typically, you'll see that this, like futures premiums, when the market is approaching a top, when it's approaching a blow-off period, and then the inverse when it's approaching a bottom, a blow-off to the downside, an exhaustive capitulatory spike to the downside, you'll see that the premium will move drastically up in the case of a top and will flatten out in the case of a bottom, or maybe even trade negatively, which would not be a good thing, right? But what you're looking at right now is that the market is actually moving up, and the premium it's kind of been pretty flat compared to where it was leading up to this. And I think that that's a good sign, right? I think that it's a good sign that we already had a really extended premium. And right now, as the market is kind of hanging out around a very important psychological number, I would say, even though it didn't give us a ridiculous response after the fact to substantiate that case, I think that's a really good sign that the Grayscale's premium is at a low versus like spiking up ridiculously, right? So right now the Grayscale premium, I think it's like 8%. Just double check. Yeah, it's 8.8%. So that's good. There's maybe some good reasoning behind this being flat and other than the market being euphoric. Maybe we have, and I just want to cover this before we get into Bitcoin. Maybe we have an increasing short interest, right? Wouldn't that be nice if there were the same people that go around the market trying to short everything and then get blown out? Maybe they were trying to impart their pressure on GBTC. Although there is a basis trade here, which does obviously get represented by one side being short. The argument is not that strong because GBTC, I think the stock float is like 660 million. So when I say float, I mean supply. So Bitcoin's float's 21 million. Although Bitcoin's float, if you consider shares outstanding, or rather not total but actual available, is far different. But GBTC, their float is, where am I missing it? Where is it? It must not be up here. One sec. Let's profile. Nope. I think it's 660 million. Let's look this up. GBTC float. Let's see how good my memory is. Right. 620. So 620. And the short interest right now, so the shares that are actually being held in short positions are 23 million. So 27 million. So 23 million compared to a 23 million short interest, so share short, compared to a 620 million float. So your short interest is like 4%, 4 or 5%. So that's not that high, honestly. Short interest would be like 10, above 10% would be pretty high. And that would be the interest, that would be the amount of shares short versus the amount of shares outstanding or total. So this is kind of conservative. It's not that ridiculous, but like I said, it's a good thing that right now that the premium is actually somewhat collapsing. All right, so let's look into BTC. Higher time frame thing I want to look at, and just to cover this, I covered this in the newsletter last night. The options market, okay? At these higher prices, we're not seeing implied volatility blown out. We're not seeing volatility through the roof whatsoever. And also we're seeing that the 25, or in the case of 25 delta skew is like the most popular one to look at, most referenced. But 30-20 delta skew was in the negative territory and is just slightly positive recently. So when the market is overly FOMO-ish and overly euphoric and chasing highs, they are looking for upside exposure, right? You know, you see on futures, premiums are blown out. You know, you have funding rates that are very high. Everyone wants upside capture. It makes sense. It's difficult to provide a market, you know, to track an index or track a perp to a spot pair when you have, right, clearly such a long market. You know, you need someone to take the other side of the trade, so you have to incentivize them. You have to pay them some sort of interest rate component. But options, same thing. You see that calls are trading much more richly normally compared to puts. So if you're looking at skew, you'll see that, let's say for, you know, let's say Bitcoin's at 50K, and, you know, 55K strike is trading at 150 implied volatility, and the 45K strike put is trading at, you know, 80 implied volatility. So that would mean that calls are trading more richly compared to puts. And if you had, let's say that those two strikes were to bring this all together, let's say that those two strikes were the 25 deltas. That would leave you with a 25 delta skew that was, in that case, positive, right? When you consider it based on calls minus puts. If you go into skew, they calculate their 25 delta skew slightly different. 30-20 delta skews, you could see on Genesis how they calculate this. Average implied volatility is calculated for all puts that have delta values between 30 and 20, negative 20, negative 30, and calls with deltas between positive 20 and positive 30. So this gives you an idea of how aggressive the market is at capturing upside. When it's very positive, everyone wants calls, okay? So what we look for as the market is moving upward are signs that maybe the market is maybe not getting as aggressive. It's kind of in a cool off period. And a good thing is seeing that actually, you know, previously up to this point, 30-20 delta skew has been trading very positively, right? Calls have been trading much more expensively relative to puts. Okay, again, calls are a really great form of upside capture in terms of leverage exposure. You're only paying a premium. You don't have to worry about liquidation. What you do have to worry about is time decay. But if you're holding futures right now, you're experiencing time decay either way with funding. But so this has become flatter recently, which is really good, right? It's become more neutral, all right? Implied volatility, not through the roof as well. So the market is not like there's no crazy energy up at these highs, right? So that's good. Okay, we're always looking for right now maybe substance to make a case, you know, behind the argument of things not being too overheated, right? The price can sustain these levels. All right, so I think that is it. I want to take a look at the chart. So let's look at first we'll look at the higher time frame BTC chart. Not a whole lot has changed. Market is grinding upward. We've seen that. Let me make sure that my artist tool is on. So we've seen many times before that in bull markets, these types of patterns, right? These types of grinding wedges upward, they have led to expansions. The one thing that's happened in bear markets a lot of the time, which had me hesitant multiple times at this high, and like I said, I was actually 8 for 8 on shorts up at the high, right up at the high. And these were very short-lived. They're nothing to brag about. But, you know, I'm just always get out of the way right away when price started coming back. But in bear markets, you've had patterns that looked like this. You know, getting everyone excited. You know, the next break is the break. And all that's happening is at these highs is you're having a high level of absorption. The market is getting very long into a pocket. And one of the questions is, you know, what is the market trying to do? It's trying to move up. Is it doing a good job of getting there? No. Is anyone off sides? Yeah, you're getting a ton of long positioning off sides at the highs. So that's occurred in, you know, in unfavorable market conditions. You don't have this big catalyst. You don't have tailwinds, you know, sideways market, bear market. And then what happens is everyone gets excited for the break. It breaks up. And then after, as everyone has waited for what they expect is, you know, a 10% move to the upside, you get the 15% move to the downside, right? In one big fell swoop. So this has been a slow grind upward. Again, volatility is not high. Choppy market. I think what you're seeing is, if you look at the futures market, if we just look at Bybit, for example, there are traders that are trying to throw around massive amounts of volume to be part of what they expect is going to be a larger move in either direction. So what you have is someone aping in with, you know, 500 million, 5 million into a pocket, you know, 6 million into a pocket. And when I say that, I'm saying like they're putting in a very high amount of volume in a tight area with market orders, right? Trying to really cause, I guess, momentum ignition in either direction. And they're getting hit back by larger players that are essentially able to push them out of position, right? The market is in this fisticuffs. And a lot of the times what you need is for this activity to be shaken out. So that's what we're seeing at the high. I don't think there's any real reason to expect a big pullback though. You know, what we have are some clear levels that are support now. You know, we have a weekly low in now. So technically speaking, this weekly low, while we wouldn't want to violate it, you don't want to come all the way down, right? In a bullish condition, you want to have as shallow of a pullback as possible. But technically speaking, you know, as long as this low is maintained, and I don't want to get hung up on lines. I want to talk about areas, because there's a ton of volume that occurs in this area. When you look at it on a weekly chart, you sort of brush over it like it didn't happen. But there was a lot of activity down here. As long as we maintain a low on the weekly chart above there, like why would you start being bearish unless you're going to be, you know, anticipating something, or you're acting early, right? Thinking that you have sort of the first seats on the bus going south. So as long as we maintain this weekly structure, I don't think there's any real reason to have any kind of other bias right now other than, you know, buy the dip mode. The market is clearly long. Again, this is not financial advice. Doesn't mean I would be longing up here though, right? So I have to say that. Doesn't mean I'd be longing. I just think that the market hasn't done anything from a higher time frame standpoint to say that the trend is doing anything other than being a volatile trend. So if you look at something like a moving average, a 20-period moving average, a volatility stop, which will incorporate some sort of standard deviation move around the average, the market hasn't done anything but be volatile. Okay, the larger trend in terms of market structure also hasn't changed. So for every large player that's in the market right now, they're kind of, you can imagine, fixated on this level. And this is a defining feature contextually in that as long as it's maintained, there's really no reason to say that the larger trend is changing. If this does change and this breaks, you could have the onset of a much larger series of flows that come into the market, because again, higher time frame structure is what, you know, you're approaching what is the most high time frame approaches to the market at that point. You include everything, right? When you look at a swing on a 5-minute chart, that might be useful for a swing trader, a scalper, but your larger asset manager doesn't care about it. Whereas when you break market structure on the higher time frame, suddenly you bring everybody into the market. You force everybody into the market, right? One way or another. You know, if you have stops below there, if that's how you define the higher time frame trend and you're a macro trader, right? A lot of you're going to force everybody to pay attention at least, and to either be involuntarily forced out of position, whether it's stops, whether it's buying the breakdown, selling the breakdown, I mean, or just beginning to second guess the trend. So that hasn't changed, and we haven't even violated the highs. So the market is clearly it's been along, and there's really no reason to change that since this break upward. And you have a lot more than that. Like we know the market is far more than technicals right now. And I think that the market having these secular tailwinds is like a no-brainer, but I think we've been so stuck on technicals for a long time that we're just like, oh yeah, I forgot about those. Like, oh, that's one of the most important things right now, because what we have right now is you have a sense of urgency by larger players, to where larger players look at things a lot of times. If they're trying to get filled for a position, what they might do is mandate a certain approach that is systematic, where it'll be like, okay, so we're buying this amount for every 2.5% dip, for every 5% dip. At a 10% dip, we're going in hard, right? Expecting mean reversion because they have a longer term thesis in play. So if you see that now price has dropped, let's say that you see a 10% drop, 5% drop, you have to keep that in the back of your mind. This is a move that is outside the normal standard deviation of moves on a small end, and you're having a sense of urgency by asset managers to get involved whatsoever. So they're going to be looking at these with a much different expectation time frame wise. Whereas you might see a breakdown below this level and see the move that occurs from here to here, right? I know I will. If we get the break back down here, I'll look for a certain strength in price action to occur. I'll look for a level of absorption down there, offside positioning by shorts, and I'll be looking at a target initially upward for that one approach. An asset manager seeing a 10% dip thinks that this is just the little bit of positioning that'll offset their cost basis over the next, let's say, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And every little bit counts, all right? So that being said, Bitcoin has right now been putting in, I think it looks like a very clear upward moving channel. And you could keep moving the goalposts with trend lines, which is a frustrating thing, and we could say that it broke out now. I think that above 50K is your level. Like, you want to hold 50K now. I was getting a little bit worried on the initial moves above. So when we had these moves back here, because again, what happens when you have a major psychological level is it's a bring everybody into the market moment. So what happens is you get a ton of crowded positioning, you get a ton of longs at the high, and the market falls under that volume. And if a market's going to roll, it's probably going to roll pretty quickly, especially when you see how high fundings have been, how aggressive market participants have been on the futures market. And towards the highs, it's sort of like the spot bid is turning off. Whoever is a spot trader right now, they're savvy. They know that they can afford to wait for price to mean revert. So you're seeing at the lows that Coinbase is trading at a premium. So we'll see that more along, not more recently. The period right here where Coinbase is in gray is trading at a premium. We're going to go back a little bit further. We can see that Coinbase is trading at a premium back here. Coinbase above Bybit, above MEX, above Binance. At the highs, it's the opposite. You're getting these are, by the way, these are futures prices and spot price. Coinbase is the gray area. The futures prices are the lines that have no area. At the highs, you're getting this aggression towards the highs, which again is a normal thing that's going to occur, and it's going to come at a cost, right? Fundings are going to be elevated for the entire bull market. There's a new normal. It's not going to be 1%, or it's not going to be 1 basis point. And that's the cost to gain leverage at this point. You gain margin on TD Ameritrade, you pay for that, right? You pay for it on funding, right? It's exorbitantly high, 1% of your notional value of contracts, but still, either way. So we're seeing that, on that initial 50K break, let me go back to this. On the initial 50K break, where are we? Okay, let's get our bearings again. Okay, this was back here. On the initial break, if you're looking at something like the footprint, what we were looking at was, the market was right here, very long, right? It got long above the high. You have kind of excess in terms of the TPO, then you have this pocket of long activity. You're looking at just between this little level alone, you have to account that there's a good amount of short stopped out in that aggressive long activity, but you're looking at like 50 million contracts above there. You can just imagine that amount, very aggressive long looking for the breakout, and then price trades below them. And you have a ton of long positioning in the market. So what can happen is, since the lows have been uninterrupted, right, low, 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 if you're going to have a puke, it's going to be off of that major psychological level, sort of area that everyone's paying attention to. Market gets long through it, overly aggressive at the high. Imagine that this is your big increase in volume, and then price cascades very quickly because all these stops are taken out. The moment that doesn't happen, right, not the moment, because it should happen very quickly. When that doesn't happen, it just gives you an insight into what isn't happening that should happen, right? Market got long here. If this was going to nuke, it should have nuked. Instead, it found its base again. Market gets long again, right? Same thing happening. You're having all this shakeout behavior. I think the more important thing to remember is, though, that chronologically, we're moving from left to right. So that happened over here. We got past that, made our way back up. Happened again, right? Market rejected, came back up. What the market is doing is it's acting like a pit bull right now. It's coming back each and every time. So the sellers that got involved here, when we're above them, they're offsides, right? Even if they passively absorbed it, right? Even if they're a limit, they're providing an offer, we're trading above them, they're offsides. So what they end up doing is providing the bounce. And I think that, again, all we want to look for right now is we want to make sure that if we do have the heavy pockets of activity coming into the market, that we maintain them. So you could see that today, not the most favorable structure in terms of positioning. We have a pretty big structure in terms of volume at the high. It's built like a P, right? And this is how, a lot of times, this is what you'll see at a short-term top. So you have a profile that's built like this, and you'll be trading, you'll fall below it, and this is, it's built top heavy, right? So market comes long into an area. Let me just put this next piece of gum in my mouth. Market comes long into this area, and you want to see that, let's say, for example, we'll just isolate this area right here. Ton of long activity. You want to see that we maintain that. So sure enough, we're sitting above that. And that's good. You want to continue to build the base below you. So trending structures, when they're built like this, okay, if you're looking at a profile, this is price doing this. And what you want to do is not lose any one of these high volume nodes. Where that is, what that is a place where there's a ton of activity that came into the market. Now, when you're trading lower than that activity, you're forcing the passive buyers out of their positions. You're forcing, the aggressive buyers out of their positions, right? So the aggressive sellers are rewarded, right? The passive sellers are rewarded, and there's this shift in balance, right? So what are longs going to probably do? Maybe they'll split, reevaluate, close out. I think you get the point. So right now, we're in a decent spot. We have a poor high. So we're just losing momentum at the high. We'll see that we're probably going to revisit this area. Good stop hunt maybe? I don't know. I think that this is just going to continue to grind higher. I think I have to spit this gum out. When I was a kid, I would swallow my gum. I'll just tuck it like a piece of dip. So this is good. You know, the fact that we have this, it's a large amount of volume that's coming in, but as long as we're trading towards the top half of it, I think we're okay. You know, it's a concept of building a base. I mean, if we look at the market over the last couple of days, it's been kind of chugging along. We've got rejected, you know, we got rejected on the 13th, 14th, but then the last 20, 24, 36 hours, we've been just kind of making this, this concerted effort upward where the market has put in some nice rotations. You are seeing this aggressive activity on the futures market, but I don't think there's really any reason to worry yet. The one thing that does stand out as we are getting to the high, and it could mean that maybe we do flush back down short term under 50K again. I want to say that, you know, 50K is very meaningful, but apparently it wasn't because it wasn't a crazy move above it. So maybe if we lose it, it's not that crazy either. But towards the right of the structure, what you'll see is that open interest is going up. It is increasing substantially, right? We're starting to see open interest really increase. And you want to see the price continuously moving up because, again, it just gives you a sign that new business is coming in. So you could have, you know, those longs that are going to be off sides if we start losing a little bit of ground up here. And more locally, what we're talking about, and this is a reversal chart, so it gives you really clean structure. You know, more locally, what we're talking about happens to be right around these lows around 50,600. We have daily VWAP right under there, previous VWAP right under there. And what you want to see is that you maintain that level, right? That's just where most of your volume is distributed, rather where the volume weighted average price is. So where most of the risk comes on. So you just want to see we're maintaining that level. If we do lose that level, you could just see maybe we come back down and test out these lows right around 49, 48.5. And it wouldn't be necessarily the worst thing. You know, we have an idea of why 50K should have been important. It wasn't really important. Maybe the market is just content on moving up in this grinding, slow float, melt fashion. Makes sense. You know, you don't need to transact too much volume if not that many sellers are coming in. There's not that much supply. You know, it wouldn't be the worst thing, right? And implied volatility is low. We've seen other metrics that indicate that the market is kind of calm up here. So cumulative volume delta right now on the spot market is supporting the trend, which is a good sign. So one of the things, I want to go over this real quick. I'll talk about liquidations after this because I went over this the last stream. I just want to cover it again. Let me get rid of open interest, even though we know that's going up. Funding rate going up. It's going to be going up for a long time, guys. We'll look at coin margin. Coin margin for one. Coin margin positions are the reason why we used to have major sell-offs, I think. So coin margin positions, they experience the drawbacks of convexity, right? The negative convexity in that when your position goes down, your margin goes down as well. I think that we're seeing that maybe we haven't had crazy sell-offs like we've had in the past because there's a lot more USDT margin futures. So there's no more of this these gamma effects to the downside. And how, for example, when you're long BTC and you're long a perp swap, you experience losses at an accelerating rate as a position goes against you. Whereas shorts, actually, if a short goes against them, they experience their losses at a decelerating rate. It's really what it is. It's just convexity. It looks like this for longs and shorts, right? So as price moves down for longs, it speeds up. As it moves up against shorts, it slows down, all right? So what we're seeing is that if we look at towards these highs, you're seeing that CVD across futures exchanges has been moving down more. So yeah, we're seeing that longs are being stopped out, though. It's not necessarily just shorts opening up, which is one reasoning that I look at CVD is to see that there's absorption and it's new positions opened, right? Not just absorption and it just being absorption because there's a strong passive bid. I'd rather see offside positioning at the bid if I'm looking at, you know, seller absorption. So we are seeing that CVD is going down. This is partially due to shorts opening aggressively, and though I would say all the long liquidations we've had up here as the market has constantly been trying to bang its head against the wall long-wise. Those not long liquidations, excuse me, because those are limit orders, but the long stops that are hit, those are turned into market orders for the most part. People are using stop market orders. That's that is helping your CVD move to the downside as well. The more important thing though is the spot is still tracking price. Okay, next thing I want to go into, and I went into this last stream, and then we'll go into ETH and then the pairs that I'm interested in right now and I'm in. And then I'll take your questions. So let me just pull up the liquidations. Oh, it's all right. So coin margin contracts. So liquidations. One thing to pay attention to with liquidations, and if anything, there's great approaches, and I said that Trip the other day shared alpha, and I won't get too specific into this, but the same concept of when we have, for example, let's say that we're looking at this area right here. Okay, there's a ton of liquidity over here. Probably is a good amount of stops, you would imagine. Say this is decent support. When you rip through this level and you trigger all those stops, what do? You take sellers out of the market, all right? Future sellers, because what you're doing is stopping out longs, right? So a long is a future seller. So the market rips down, okay, stops out a bunch of longs. So you need to think about it in these terms. When you took the long out of the market by stopping them out, you took out a future seller in the opposite direction. Yeah, they could open up a sell, right, if they're on a futures contract. But in particular, with how this affects the short, with how this affects the spot market. When you're just talking about stops, liquidations is obviously the futures market. When you stop out the longs, right, market rips down. What you did is you took off all those take profits, right? So any take profit order that's associated, with an OCO order, you took that off. You took a potential seller out of the market. So when the market finds a base, usually there's a nice gap in terms of any kind of opposition for the market to move back up through, right? So you'll hear the term that the market needs to sell off before it can move higher. You're taking out potential sellers, right? What you're doing is, what hopefully you're doing is you're moving some future sell pressure above where the price was before it sold off, because what you're doing at that point is, as the market rips back through that level, you're bringing those previous people back into the market as buyers. With liquidations, one thing to pay attention to, and I guess I would say to consider this if you're like FOMO selling, you're selling out of fear after there's a big liquidation candle. A lot of the times, like let's say you have a tremendous amount of liquidations, and values of over 50 million contracts, right? Just look through historically what has been large values. This is not really, after you've had a successive period of liquidations, let's say to the downside, you've liquidated a bunch of longs. This is not the time to consider just opening up hedging your position at the low or selling your position. A lot of the times what you're doing at that point, since the liquidation engine is working off of a limit order, after that engine is done, right, and that all those liquidations have occurred, that book is going to be a lot thinner, right? So let's say that you have a ton of liquidations, bang, 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 a bunch of liquidations, and now you're at support. What you more than likely have after a large amount of liquidations is a very thin pocket. And Trip shared this, and I'll just give you the first piece of insight. If you have a decent spike, right, if price is able to cover a large range off a low amount of volume, what that's showing you is that the book does not have much stickiness above. So if anything, there is a long opportunity there, because price will more than likely mean revert and cover what is kind of like a vacuum. So my case to you is not, and this is not advice, this is not for you to learn a trading, to take this and start applying it. Have these things in mind when you're considering, like dumping everything after you have like a big candle and it's a bunch of liquidations. The same thing I said at the original high. When I said this all the way back here, during this low, I was saying, guys, like, I don't want to give you advice, but look at historically speaking, what has happened more often than not. You put in a mean reverting structure on the daily, okay? So we didn't have that yet. You have a move that's over 20%. You more often than not mean revert that. Between 20 and 30%, odds are in your favor to hang on a little bit longer at that point. You'll be able to sell at a higher price. So that's the same concept with following a bunch of liquidations. The only thing that I would say is something you should discern that it would change your interpretation of, okay, maybe I should hang on a little longer versus maybe this is really bad, is if you take out a support level and you are now hanging out under it, and it is acting as resistance. So you take out a major level with liquidations. You know what I'm talking about? If you start seeing we liquidate structures through this low, that might have a lot further to drop. But just take it in context, right? Take it in context and with relation to structure. Now, moving along to the pairs that I want to talk about. All right, so let's pull them up. Here we go. Thanks for hitting the like button too, guys. If you go ahead and hit the like button some more, that'd be great. So Shroom, I've been in and out of Shroom. I'm holding, is this scam? I'm holding Shroom, okay? Shroom has a market cap of under 20 million. Shroom supply is 65 million, okay? So that is less than Ethereum, right? This is not changing, okay? Maybe it'll reduce, I don't know. I just know it's not going up. And right now the market is in a place where it is going to be looking for the small caps that haven't pumped tremendously. And it's kind of having this trickle down effect where, you know, we pump the mid caps and now it's like, what does the market do next? It goes and pumps the small caps. And that sounds ridiculous, guys, but in a bull market, that's what happens, right? This is the normal flow of a bear market too when there's a rally. You know, Bitcoin pumps, bigger caps pump, not sustainable. Small caps, you know, mid caps pump, not sustained. Small caps pump, market all dumps again, right? Bull market, you want to, like I said, skate where the puck is going many times. You see that all of the big things, SNX, Aave, like, do they have a lot of upside? I'm sure they do. Are they the best location to buy right now? I am pretty sure that they're not. Whereas things that are the lower caps, in terms of scalability, market cap is 17 million. You could look back in 5 days from now and it would be at 100 and it would still be insignificant. And that would be a multiple of 4.55 from here. And it's sort of like you just blow on these things and they'll start flying. Okay, so I am in position, so I got to say that. I'm in position with Shroom. I hold a substantial amount of Shroom. And it's not just because of that, it's because that they actually have something that they're releasing that I've seen sneak peeks of it. It looks phenomenal. I think that there's a compelling case for all of these things right now with NFTs, with DEXs, and Shroom is something that just, I could see it going viral just because of the cute little Shroom, right? As stupid as that is, things anchor in people's psyche, right? It's more about just a product. It's about a brand, okay? If you were in a hotel and if you're in a, you know, I don't know, like a Hilton or a Marriott, right, in the United States. If you're in a Hilton or a Marriott and you took those logos off the wall, would you know you're in either? No. But if you were in, you know, Ritz-Carlton versus a Marriott, you probably would. And if you were in, you know, it's like, are you able to spot a piece of Nike clothing right away? Yeah, the branding is so big, okay? That thing, you pick up on it right away, the swoosh. I think that one of the compelling things about Shroom is that it does have this, I don't know, there's something about it. And if it works on me, it could work on a lot of other people. And I just think we're going to see this rotation. And the chart, I wanted to say all that stuff first, right? Because the chart is a very clear, this to me is a very clear flip of a very important contextual level, which is your all-time high. All it's saying is that, and just to put it as simply as possible, I am surviving, right? I am not continuing to make new lows. I am actually beginning to put in new highs. The market is paying attention to me. People are buying me. That's what it's saying, and I want to make it as simple and dumb as possible because that's what it comes down to. That's why a long time ago, CZ, when someone fucked up one of his charts because they fat-fingered, the guy wanted, you know, he wanted the trade to be rewinded, right? He was like, I didn't mean to sell this much. And CZ said, well, you know, I know that, but how do you think the team of this project feels you nuke their chart? Charts matter, right? In these new projects, charts matter. So if you have a chart that is continuously making lows, what you're doing is you're having people say, hey, maybe it'll put it in bottom, but I won't get involved until it starts to show. If everybody says that, no one buys, right? Whereas when something has begun to put in what looks like, you know, sort of your prototypical bottom, I don't care if you call it a rounded bottom, you call it any kind of, you call it Elliott wave, or whether you subscribe to, you know, Wyckoff accumulation, the more the better, right? The fact that it's breaking above the high to me says that I think this is going over $1 easily. And, you know, you guys can, this is not financial advice, but if you want to, you know, say some mean things to me a year from now if it doesn't, if it hits 99 cents. I think that it's going over $1 pretty soon. Things have gone much further that have gone on to be garbage. Dentacoin was $1 billion in market cap. My partner and I were talking about that yesterday. Josh reminded me of that. Dentacoin was $1 billion in market cap at one point. It is $17 million in market cap now. So it took the opposite route. It was that high before. In the beginning of a bull market, things like this are things like Shroom that I don't even know about right now. I'm going to be looking at in the future and saying, damn, I wish I could have bought that when it was a $50 million market cap. And then this gets into the next point, which is someone messaged me about DexTF, which is another one that I'm into. And I'm into because I've always been a fan of Alex. I trust the guy, very smart guy. Compelling use case for an asset management protocol that has a ton of transparency that is decentralized. So this is something that I've got into. Yes. Has it pumped a good amount? Yes. But be careful thinking that because something has 20x'd already that it's done. Okay. 20x'd from where? Right? 20x'd from a hundredth of a penny, right? 20x off of what value, right? Because you could look at things and continue to scale down all the way down to zero if you're looking at assets with that approach. You could look at anything, and the beginning of the growth is always going to be massively exponential. At some point within Amazon, within a listing, I don't want to say Amazon because it didn't get listed obviously at fractions and fractions and fractions of a penny, but with a lot of these altcoins, like they don't get listed at. Some of them get listed at a tenth of a penny, right? So for them to get to 10 cents, they've already done like a 10x, a 20x, and then meanwhile they'll go on to 100x from there. So I think it's really important to at least to begin to baseline things. Look at the market caps. If we look at Dext, I think it's so DexTF. This is only a $43 million market cap project. So now go look at things that are 500 million, that are 700 million, that are even 100 million, right? So that's a 2x. So a $100 million market cap implies that this 2x's, all right, roughly, okay? So look at all the stuff that did that like last night, that is not doing it for any substantial reason, but the market is just shifting to all the things that haven't pumped. It's not going to take much. So you could see by this that there's a lot of things that have room to grow. So if you're thinking that because it's 20x already, that it can't 10x, you're not thinking about it the right way, right? And if you're thinking that 10x is not worth your time, if you're thinking that 2x is not worth your time, you're absolutely fucking crazy, all right? And this is not advice, but if you start approaching markets with the idea that, well, 2x is not worth my time, you're crazy, like, I don't know what to tell you. So this is one of the pairs that I am involved in. Hedgic as well, right? This is they're offering American call options on Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Wrapped Bitcoin, wrapped Ethereum. I think this is a really cool idea. I think that there's going to be a lot of these DEXs that are options platforms, and I think that I don't know which one's going to win, but I want exposure to a bunch of them, right? So this is another one that is continuously putting in a series of higher highs and higher lows, right? Been a lot more compressed, but it's almost like the psychology, or rather the structure of the chart plays a huge role in psychology. And when you look at this and you're approaching this with strength from below, right, holding a 20-period moving average, holding recent, more important levels within market structure, you start to look at this as the gap that's going to be chased up, right, or it's going to be filled by this sort of chasing and herding behavior. And in a bull market, I can't tell you how many times you'll look at a chart like this, you look at it 2 months from now, and this went on to close that gap. Not to say that this ends up doing that exact amount, but if we look at CoinGecko again, just get an idea of the project. It's a big project, but there's no reason to see why this cannot 3-4x from here. I shared this is a $154 million market cap. That's still small, right? That is still so small. So fully diluted valuation is about 7-8 times that. Still, for what they're offering, what they're trying to tackle, I think that is there's room for growth here. When I talked about PancakeSwap last week or the other day, whenever it was, PancakeSwap, what did it go on to do? Right? I talked about PancakeSwap. I said that this was a good buying opportunity as it was sort of approaching what was a very obvious trend line of resistance over time, right? Sort of the pace of how the market was moving down over time. Okay, and it was actually further extended. It was from back here. Pancake swap, right? Binance Smart Chain. Binance Smart Chain looks really attractive when Ethereum is charging ridiculous fees. Ethereum is kind of pricing the small guy out, which is not good right now, right? Which is a reason, this is why you got to pay attention to flows in markets rather than just specifically individual assets. Think about what a lot of people are coming into the market right now, not with, not all people are the asset managers. The retail that chases it up is coming in with $500, $1,000, $5,000, smaller amounts. And Ethereum, I've had people ask me, hey, where can I get involved in such and such project? And I tell them, and I don't, I get involved in something if I have conviction about it and a momentum play, I just ape in. I'm like, all right, slippage, whatever. It's going to be 20% higher, I think, when it breaks through this level, and that's what it is. The gas fees, all right, cost of doing business, but this is not the case for everybody, right? That's a position of privilege and stupidity to think like that, honestly. So I don't want to say that that's smart of me, but it's like a cost I'm willing to bear. If you're trying to get involved in a smaller scale, that's substantial. You can't, So not to say that that's going to mean that there's a downfall to ETH or anything, by no means, but you do have to think of where the little guy is more favored right now, right? And Binance Smart Chain, I think that it's going to accrue a lot of attention just from that. And, I shared it when it was at $7, and it's at, the stuff I shared I'm not bragging about this stuff. It's at 1038, which is something that I think is, I still think it's undervalued. In terms of looking at how the actual volume that they're doing and the amount of liquidity that they have locked up, I want to say that it's at, what is this at? Like a quarter of what Uniswap is. So, if you look at Uniswap and you think of the capture of that market, that the bit of market share it could capture from that alone, I think that there's a lot more upside for this. So I'm going to go through the questions now because I went through, I think, everything I wanted to. Let me go through some of the questions. All right. Okay, so I see someone ask about Westchester's beautiful, Christopher. Love Westchester. Westchester's a lot of big players from the city. They live in Westchester. I have some family up in Westchester. It's great because it's not a city area. It's close enough to New York City though, but you have just such a beautiful suburban sort of and rural area as well. Let's look at BTC again. Yeah, the effect of leverage on the market right now is why you're seeing a lot of this back and forth behavior. You have people that are doing what? The most obvious thing. They want more exposure at the most significant level that we've had in a while. So what they're doing is they're aping in and they're getting shaken out of position. So one of my approaches is one of my core pieces of alpha, I would say, integrates part of what I see in terms of very specific positioning with very specific set of occurrences happening at given locations like this. And not to get any further into it, but it has offered me a ton of awesome trading opportunities in the last 48 hours that actually weren't present during this break because this was not as significant of a level. We are still within, all of this was a pain in the ass, right? From here to here, it wasn't, okay? Leading up to it, kind of a pain in the ass to trade for this one particular approach that I have, but above a high through a significant level when the market starts getting really aggressive and chomping at the bit, that's where I make the most money. And it's because you have a lot of people acting idiotic on futures platforms. They have a small amount of money, they're aping it up, and they only have a small amount of, they have a really poor debt to equity ratio. They are, what do we want to say? They're under collateralized, right? They're taking like $10,000, putting it up to 100x, and they're aping in left and right, and they're looking for the breakout, right? And they're not getting rewarded with it, so they're getting in and out of positions, and you're having a lot of happy players on the lower time frames because of this. I think it's going to resolve soon, honestly. I can't see it taking much longer. What I wouldn't look over though is the possibility that you get, and you have to be aware of this, that you get the spike up, and then before a continuation, you have the dump down. Right, so you have, and you've seen this occur before, market's at a point, spike up, yes, finally, long, it's time to long, everyone gets long up here, this is overweight, like you see ridiculous amount of volume get stuck in a pocket, and then the market clears everything all at once, and then what do you know? We're back here a week later where we have something that looks like this, right? You haven't seen this a lot lately, which is maybe because there's not as much concentration in coin margin contracts, but it's entirely possible. And that's why I would really have a higher time frame idea of what constitutes this trend changing for me. Because of the amount of activity you're seeing on the futures market, it's easy to get thrown out if you're looking at the low time frames. But it's just noise, right? Let's see. No, the volume, I'm not really concerned about the volume so much. I think that the market is not moving up because of short liquidations as much as it is anymore from just organic buying. So with breakouts, sometimes you'll have a massive amount of volume because there's people betting on the other side heavily, right? They're betting on a major breakdown. You force them out of the market, and there's a big battle that takes place. I don't know if we're seeing that much of a battle up here. As much as I've said before, it's that there's actually longs that are just getting overweight, like they're getting fat, right? And they're rolling over. So there's not a lot of supply up here. So it's not, and the market's thin. You can tell it's thin. When I'm trading low time frames, I see like very insignificant amounts of capital come in and move the market like a lot more than it normally would lower. And it's like popping up and down off of insignificant amounts of money. So there is not a lot of supply up here. So there's not necessarily a reason for a ton of volume to come in to deal with these levels, right? So I'm not as concerned. Market could be melting up. So just keep in mind, like, guys, this means the market can melt up to 60K and then dump back down to 50, right? And then maybe it needs to work out more of its next base. So all we're saying is, like, it's very easy to think in a very binary fashion with BTC where we're like, okay, is it going all the way up or all the way down? Well, it's probably going to go up a lot in the near future, and then we're probably going to have a longer-term correction, I would assume. 60K is a significant level. I think it's going to take some time to get to 100K. Who knows, though? I could be wrong. Anthony Scaramucci coming out today. He bought $500 billion worth of Bitcoin, and he thinks it's going to 100K this year. And these guys, after they fill their bags, that's going to be their goal for the next couple of months. Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. You best believe that they're going to look stupid, and we're all going to be winking like, yeah, I remember you. You were talking shit, So, hey, we want them to be in here. We want them to be, speaking their book, kind of jawboning the rest of the sideline market into the market with their position of authority. So, let's see. ETH gas prices. So I talked about ETH gas prices. Each bull market, widespread hypertension. Yeah. So I think the next bear market is going to be more attached to traditional markets. I don't think it's going to be as substantial. I don't think we're getting 80% drawdowns. Higher prices mean calmer waters. More of an inclination for these institutional players to provide a floor. I'm not talking about like a central bank floor for a currency, like where they're going to step in and protect it at all costs. But it's going to be a different market moving forward. So I don't want to extrapolate too much, though, because I think that's a problem I think that's one of the reasons why even myself, like, I've made some mistakes. Nothing big, but my mistakes have been around ideas that have been built from the past and me expecting them to recur in the future the same way. So 50K is a new normal. Why market profile tails are considered weak and unsustainable highs with excess, which look like tails. So tails, when we're looking at profile, what we're looking at is where's value developing. We're looking at context, right? Balanced context, sort of trending, rotational, trending, impulsive, imbalanced. And then we're looking at, where the market was accepted and rejected. When you have a tail like this, so when you have this is excess at the high, all right, seller stepped in, excess at the low, buyer stepped in. There's a lot of, I guess, vagaries around what is a tail versus what is excess, because you'll have a really ridiculous tail like this, or let's say you had a really long tail. I wouldn't be looking at this and saying, let's say that the market, we came up to the high and we put in a tail like a tail at the high like this, a selling excess at the high. I wouldn't look at this and say, oh man, we were rejected and now we're not going to be welcome back up there. This kind of tail, I'd be like, all right, so initial rejection, probably going to fill out this inefficiency at some point, but we know there's a seller up here. Whereas, you know, in certain contexts, I'll look at a tail and be like, well, that's an adequate bottom, right? If it is, let's say that we took out, let's say we have previous lows where we didn't have any tails. This was a poor low. You had excess at the low over here. You have kind of a ripe area of liquidity below these lows. Okay, in this case, the market moves below, puts in a decent tail, right? Excess at the low, a buying tail. Oh, that's good. I actually, that's a case where I'm saying right now, I don't think we're going to revisit that. Like, if anything, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, well, the market was rejected there. All right, so we know where a buyer is. We know where the other side of the market is. In that case, the buying side of the market. It's done a good job at leaving that area. Versus when you have something like this, so when we have a profile like this, all right, so as I said, you know, where did most of the volume come in? It's at the high. So we definitely want to be trading above it. So far, though, we haven't walked into anything that's really rejected price. So we have this blunt top. Now, the problem is, like, when you have tools like this, you'll go to one source and it'll say a poor high like this is, you know, a sign that the market has been sold continuously and, you know, we're going to roll over from here. And then someone else will say a poor high is a place where a stop run is going to occur. Someone else will say a poor high is a great place for a breakout to occur. And you're like, which one is it? You know, this doesn't sound like a system. Like, how am I supposed to apply this consistently? Well, you're taking this and you're trying to form some type of context, right? So we have a very bullish market. We haven't seen us get rejected tremendously at these higher levels. What I'm looking at when I'm looking at a profile like this is I'm saying, hey, you know, market has been able to kind of cool up to this level right now. You know, we were rejected prior, and now we're back up. When we get accepted into a level where we were rejected, I'm always looking at higher prices. I'm like, seller's no longer there, all right? When the market has been rolling up to a level and creating this sort of poor high, I might say, okay, momentum is clearly not there. We might have to move slightly lower first, but I'm looking for this area to be revisited. Okay, in this context, do I think the revisit is likely to be a stop run, or is it likely to be a breakout? I think in current context, being where we're at in terms of a significant level, that the acceptance through this level after we battle this out is going to be adequate enough for an acceptance and expansion upward. All I'm doing is getting an idea of what the current trading environment is, right? Where's value developing? Where have we been accepted? Are we in a rotational environment? Are we in a trending impulsive environment, right? Where's most of the activity, where's the most activity coming into the market? And where are we trading in relation to that, right? Are we continuously able to make higher prices after activity comes in? Hey, we're good to go. You know, we keep building the base under us as we're going up. That's fine. Once you start, climbing up and you're putting in value or putting in, we're putting in volume above us and not able to hold those levels, all right, things are getting a little top heavy. Sellers are maybe beginning to gain control. So you have to look a lot more into this. Obviously, we do have a course, but I always suggest use the free stuff first. Pick up the book by Dalton. Pick up Markets and Profile and what is one of the better ones? Where is it? Shit, I have another bookcase. I might have moved everything. Markets in Profile and crap. Why, this should be near my computer. It's not. It shouldn't be in the other room. All right, maybe it's in the other room. Someone in the chat can definitely answer this. God, where the fuck is my book? There's two. All right. I'm gonna give up. I'm gonna turn the chair one more time, and then I don't know where the hell it is. Oh, I do know where it is. Okay, I gave them to my friend. I gave them to my buddy Parseval when he came over. I gave him them. I said, "Here, man, you wanted to learn market profile." I said, "Here, take these two books and leave with them." Okay, so that makes sense. I'm probably not gonna get those back either. Okay, so. And someone probably already answered it. All right. So I am with Casa, Sir Fluffy Ball. And Casa does a really good job of talking you through how to set it up. Phenomenal team. You feel like you have white glove treatment. I'm not going to go over that whole setup right now, but I'll tell you this. Multisig sounded intimidating, you know, but they have put it in a package that makes it very smooth, and I wouldn't do it any other way now. I would never put my Bitcoin back in one little thing and put that in a safe. Like, multisig is, I will never not have multisig anymore. And they have been phenomenal. I don't know. I've dealt with like crypto companies before, and it's always, sometimes they're underwhelming because everybody's new. Like, everyone's establishing a new business. People are now who are like, people who are like technocrats and programmers. They're maybe not the most business savvy. Maybe they're not the best at HR. Maybe they don't know how to deal with the front-facing customers as well. So you see this kind of awkwardness. But with Casa, like I said, it is white glove treatment. It was awesome. And I love them. I think they're awesome. And I don't get paid by them. And like I've said before, when I like a project, a company, I'm more than happy to help someone out because, you know, this is a time for, I think, you want to know the great companies that you should be dealing with or should be favoring. So it helps to give them amplification. Name of the chair is, I don't remember. AK Racing. Okay. AK Racing. But I also have a Herman Miller. Herman Miller, that's the name of I think it's called a Herman Miller. Let's see. Coinbase helped. Makes sense. A lot of guys are going through Coinbase. So those who hold gold and those who hold Bitcoin, Salvador, I think that it's old tech versus new tech, but I don't think gold is going anywhere. I think people are always going to have they're always going to have an affinity for things that are tangible, that you could feel, that you could touch, that you could store underground and protect with your guns. And I think there's always a place for that. I think that you don't ever want to see the society that needs that anymore, though, right? Besides industrial application and jewelry, I don't think we want to ever have a society where you need gold again. You know, you're shaving off pieces of gold to buy milk. But I think there always is a place for that. You never say never, right? So, okay. Tech bubble in the 90s, is it possible? Yes, it is possible, but the bubble went on for a really long time in the 90s, and the great companies, you know, they rose out of that and went on to be way more incredible than they were during the tech bubble, right? So bubble pops, does inflate again. All the successful things get sifted out of the, you know, shit. So yeah, that's possible. I love when people talk about crypto being tulips, because it's like people who study the tulip mania don't know that maybe Bitcoin is a Semper, what is it called? The Semper Augustus. So during the tulip mania, there was actually one tulip that after the tulip mania popped, the Semper Augustus went on to retain a really high value. So, you know, even out of something like that, which is a popular comparison, one of the tulips went on to be still a very expensive tulip to have. Particular, I guess, type. All right. Normally starting to buy is not a top signal for crypto. No, I don't think so. That's like, at this point with the way the crypto markets are, it's like, are normies, you know, is it the new wave of retail for crypto? No, it's one of the first waves, right? It's 2017, first wave. 3 years later, you still had a market that is so small. So, no, I don't think so. I think it'd be a different case if suddenly you had, I think with equities, it's slightly different because they're not the same scale. Crypto is underallocated to. Good technique to capture funding. I mean, not giving advice, but I've captured my fair share of that basis by taking advantage of getting paid that on a 24-hour period, which adds up quite a lot if you have a good amount of money. You got to put it on perfectly, though, right? So long BTC, spot, and short Bitcoin futures, each equal amount of contracts, so you're delta neutral. Yeah, I mentioned Shroom. Bitcoin is about to touch 10K. No, unboxing, like, unless you have like a good reason for saying something like that, it's not based on reality. So companies are not going to be banning anything that is really related to innovation unless they're a company that's not, they're a country that's not innovated, and then they'll be left in the past, honestly. So you're seeing countries come out and saying, I think I can't remember what country said they're banning it because it's ruining their currency. Well, evolve or die kind of thing, and you're going to just speed up your death if you don't continue to move with the future. Not to say that that's Bitcoin, but I don't think so, man. I don't think saying something like that either is a good call. All right, so nope. All right. Bitcoin decoupled from the stock market. It has so far recently. Yes, even though I think it is a higher beta play on risk assets as well, it still can maintain that narrative. Nope, can't say that, Mr. Misanthropic. If I said I couldn't say it in the Telegram, why the hell would I say it in a stream? So, nope. And Mr. Misanthropic, if you don't know me yet, I'm pretty upfront and forward with how I talk. So, not to call you out, but why would I do that? Okay, is it possible that ETH goes to 20K? So you're asking a lot of questions, Sal. It doesn't mean that I'm going to pick you now, just so you know that. No, is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? I don't think so. I don't think ETH's going to 20K. ETH moves with a certain relationship to BTC. I think you could expect it to maintain. So ETH going to 20K implies a ridiculously high BTC, and I do not think that that's going to be the case. Also, ETH going to 20K means that it multiplies from 10x from where it currently is, basically. I don't think that that's going to be the case without it needing to capture a ton of market share from a lot of other things that currently exist. Yeah, I did make that on my own, Heisenberg. Okay. Crypto markets, money laundering markets. Anyone who knows anything about money laundering knows that the cash market is the best one for that. So she's just, doing what she would be expected to do. The sound is probably me playing with my pen. All right. Okay, too many questions. You are cut off, man. You're rate limited. Okay. Let me just go to the bottom. What's up, Josh? Okay. Sorry, guys. Let me just show you where I'm at in the chat. Appreciate all the participation. I really do. Okay. Yeah. Oh, great. So, Heisenberg, so you say something that's really silly. And people might say it's stupid and say Mario 64 Shroom. But that's honestly exactly what I'm thinking. It's stuff like that. It's anything that can be attached to an emotion or a memory or, whether it's me saying that the shroom is like this cute little thing that can go viral. I don't know. That sounds stupid. But if I think that, and it's hard for me to say those things, and you say Mario 64 Shroom, it's something, that Mario 64, nostalgia, right? All of these are like little anchors, okay? And they influence people's decision making. So I think that the more that you have of that, the better. I don't have a target with Shroom. I've been in and out of Shroom, like I said. Now I'm just holding it. So I think it's ready to ride. I think people just need to be patient. Yeah, I think Dext is going to be great. Alex is awesome. He wouldn't get behind something, I don't think, if it didn't have real substance to it. This is terrible advice. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Jason, you could find your way out of the chat. I mean, this is not advice either. But I would love for you to comment on why it's... We're not giving out advice either way, but I would love some follow-up on your vapid comment. BitBoy is an ambassador of SmartKey, blah, 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 blah. So, no. All right. Oh, maybe you're saying that was terrible advice. I don't know what you're saying is terrible advice. I thought you were saying it was to me. So... Oh, yeah. Or you are saying, okay, but you can and will find something similarly undervalued that hasn't. I don't know what wasn't clear about that. So you're taking for granted the fact that you could just overlook the thing that might 10x that already has momentum and still dig for the thing that has 20. Yeah, I mean, good luck. it's not a given. That's in theory, just like everything. So, good luck, Jason. I hope you find a 50x. We're talking about things that actually have a bit of confluence between what are fundamentals and basic supply and market cap type of analysis, and then making a case for that next to market generated information such as the chart. So we're not just talking about how much something has multiplied. There's a bit more to it. Trying to build a whole case. Okay. All right, I'm going through all these, sorry. Okay, and then I think after this I'll pick the winners. Yeah, worst global situation. I don't know what you mean living in Asia and no one's buying BTC. Asia is a good amount of the volume. So, explainer, I don't think what you're saying is based on fact. And then worst global situation. I think that we're in a situation where we could really only go up from here. We're looking at a ton of liquidity that is willing to come into markets and turning on economies, essentially, after them being turned off for a long time. Now, this plays a role in inflation and the drawbacks of that, but the doom and gloom stuff, like, we just went through a pandemic, right? We just experienced ridiculous moves, standard deviations above anything in the last decade. And you think that it's only going to get worse from here? I don't know. Maybe markets are not your place. Okay. Because my point is, like, if you think like that, you're going to constantly be the person who shorts the S&P. So, yeah. How do you think the increasing price of BTC will affect retail's entry into crypto? Someone who's not as crypto market says, yeah, so that's the thing, the one thing, and this is why there's a compelling case to be made for, and then I'm going to wrap it up, pick questions, and we're going to get out of here. One of the compelling cases for altcoins that are on fiat exchanges is that people do have a unit bias. So a unit bias is, let's say that you're looking at BTC, you're an unsophisticated investor, you're looking at a Bitcoin, even right now it's 50K, you're looking at, XRP. And I have friends that are getting into crypto now. They're brilliant people. They are working professionals that are very successful, very, very smart, very astute, and they are all asking, what about Tron? What about XRP? They're going onto exchanges and they're seeing things that on a cost basis are very cheap in dollar terms relative to Bitcoin. I think that does play a role. I think that education has improved to the point where people are more privy to the fact that you buy Bitcoin in broken down units, right? But that is the initial effect. The initial very unsophisticated effect on an investor when they go onto Coinbase is, okay, Bitcoin is 50K. This thing right next to it is $1. This might be a Bitcoin in the future. Maybe I'll be a multi-billionaire. So that does have an effect. Avi Fellman. Funny that you say that. I love Avi. Avi's great. I was just talking to Avi today. So let's see. So that does have an effect, but I think that people are more tuned in to how it works now. Initial effect is that way. So that's why you do see a big move in the spot pairs that are alts on fiat exchanges. Avi, so let's see what he said. Yeah, I don't know if Bitcoin will repeat itself this time around with the pullback of 10%. I think that, again, it just gives you confidence that if you do get one, it's usually something that's mean reverting, and now you actually have a substantial buyer there. There's actually a difference now between this environment, though, and when we had that 10% pullback in terms of positioning. So I think we had more of a premium back then. All right. I think that's it. No, I haven't heard about Sky. I haven't. Okay, guys, so I think it's been a good stream. I went over all the pairs that I'm interested in. Bitcoin is at 52K. Let's pull this up without pulling it up. I am in a scalp from 51,271 still. I'm probably just going to exit at this now. No LARP. Hold on one sec. I don't want to say that I'm in a position and then you guys see that I'm not in a position. I'm in actually a small position. So I'm in a scalp from 51,271. Let me close that out at the high. So let's see. I want to give away $200 in Bitcoin. So I close that out. What price did I exit at? Hold on one sec, guys. Sorry about that. All right, so my hold on one sec. Oh, it didn't register yet. Okay, so that was decent. So I'm going to give away $200 in BTC. I'm going to give it away to 4 people that asked a question. Some of you asked a lot of questions, and I want to say that it doesn't work like that. But I'm going to pick questions based on the quality of the question. I don't know if there's any system to how I would qualify the quality of the question because it's purely subjective. But hey, if you win $50, you know, like I said, message me on Twitter. Message me. Don't message the BlockRoots account. Don't bother Josh. You know, I said I'm going to take care of this right now. Obviously, we're partners, but make sure you send a message to me. Sometimes I go onto the BlockRoots Twitter account and have a message, and I'm like, I said to message me. You know, I'm CanteringClark on Twitter. So message me. You'll have to message me and then leave a comment under your name. So pay attention now because the rules, if you don't pay attention to the rules, you don't win. Sometimes people don't follow up and I'm like, I'm not finding you after I message you multiple times. You have to prove that it's you. So I'm going to pick 4 people. When you win, you're going to need to leave. All right, after I'm choosing you on the live stream, so you're not going to be able to say it afterwards that you won, and I'll know. So I'm going to pick you, okay? I'm going to tell you. You're going to need to send me a message on Twitter, and then under the YouTube video, after it's posted, it won't allow comments yet, but you'll comment that it is you, all right? And that you're the person on Twitter that messaged me. And you'll have to share the post or whatever it is, or share your Twitter handle. And then I'll send you the $50 in BTC. So really quick, I'm going to go through, okay? All right, I'm picking them right now as long, and I'm not, even though I'm not stopping. All right, so Jordy P, the question on why market profile tails are considered weak and unsustainable, but highs with excess, which look like tails, are considered strong. So again, highs with excess, even lows with excess, what you're seeing is that the market has been rejected. So you're looking at an area where someone said, nope, you are not passing here, and you're not allowed to cozy up to this area either. So that was good. Jordy P, you won, so message me. So that's 1. Okay. Okay, Sir Fluffy Furball, you asked a question about CASA. It's not really, a question that I would say, I was like, oh, it's an amazing question. But I think that it ends up helping a lot of people because I think that it's really important that you remember not your keys, not your coins. All right, so again, I don't work with CASA, okay? I have CASA. CASA is not paying me to say anything. I am happy to be part of CASA, right? And to have CASA multisig. And I think that your question helps bring attention to that. So, you'll win $50. So Sir Fluffy Ball Furball, and then let's go down. I already had in mind some things. I just have to remember exactly. Okay. Right. One sec. Oh, Gassan, I saw your question. I didn't even answer. So, Gassan Nicholas, I remember that I was going to reward you because I saw that you highlighted smart guy. So I'm rewarding you because you brought attention to your question, which is put in the extra effort by tagging BlockRoots. So this anchored in my memory, right? Which is the same reason why some of these things will continue to go up. So price action on the lower time frame has changed a lot recently towards a stop loss hunt. How can you avoid this as retail trading, lower time frame order flow? So this is actually a great question because it is very frustrating. And I'll be 100% honest with you and tell you that when I'm trading order flow in the low time frames, I only have one type of stop on. I have a tail risk stop on. So I have a stop that is outside of the structure, okay, that is only there in case shit goes really bad, and I got to make sure that even though I'm taking a bigger loss than I want, that it is for example, protecting me having massive downside. Now, these types of trades that I'm getting involved in on the low time frame, I'm stopping myself out all the time. So I'm pulling out of the position as soon as it doesn't work. As soon as my thesis does not work, as soon as my idea does not pan out, and I'm looking for a very quick response, I want to get paid fast, I'm stopping myself out. There is a lot of stop hunting that's taking place, and it's because, as I said, there's a lot of volume coming in into this very tight pocket, and there's a bounty on that liquidity, right? So market makers, you want to call them market makers, which are, there's a lot of bullshit that goes around with what market makers' role is and what they do. Rather, the role is clear, but what they do is people, they get creative with that. But bigger players are able to impose themselves and sort of counterpunch. And when you see big volume come in, you know that there are positions around that area. It represents liquidity. So, I always make a joke about the charts of liquidity leverage levels because I think they're absolutely ridiculous for a lot of reasons. One, it just makes assumptions about leverage is being used, and it's entirely predictive. It's a OI and delta. But other than that, there are hunts that are taking place. And as the market moves up, and this is why this is a great question, as the market moves up, it's going to be tougher to trade. You're going to have more higher frequency activity, more fast money, more high frequency activity come in that can't scale in right now or can't get involved at these, maybe in these conditions, or maybe it's just not as attractive for them for a multitude of reasons. So as the market matures, it's going to be more difficult, okay? I feel fine because I've traded the ES and crude oil. I don't know if there's anything more difficult than that in terms of trading lower time frame. And I'd say crude oil become a lot more difficult. So I think that it is something that has become, like you said, there's a noticeable change. So it is a market that is trending very strong, though. And the periods where it's not trending are shakeout periods, I would say. So this is, in certain context, you're going to see that maybe in a range-bound environment, the lower time frame activity will go back to being a little bit more favorable, a little bit less of a stop hunt. Whereas trending environment, the consolidations are corrections, right? And there's a bounty on that liquidity. So U1, and then the last one is going to be given out to going down. Let's see, I remember where the last one was. Okay, I don't go into specifics, so never ask me questions about specific dollar amounts. I'm never going to tell you, like, I think this is a good amount. I just think you save yourself the question. Okay, one sec. You asked that twice. I know there's one more question. Okay. One sec. Was there? Did I miss it already? Oh, okay. There you go. Michael Rutherford. The question about increments in BTC. So you won. Congratulations. We went over that already. That is that. Let me go through the bottom and give the people that have insulted me a chance to apologize. I'm messing around, man. Like I fall back on the dumb thing that I am a Greek and Italian dude from New York, so I break balls all the time. I don't mean anything. You ask a question, and you're entitled to ask whatever question your own, your own opinion. I've been wrong plenty of times, so okay. Oh, thanks, Jason. See, Jason, call that a shit sandwich. You've given me a backhanded compliment. No, I'm just kidding. So, and sorry if it was unclear. My argument is that chasing a 20x, even if it has another. Oh yeah. Oh, Jason. So, Jason, the point is that there's never any certainty about like where we are. It's all about like what the listing price was, right? So I apologize for that. Chasing a 20x, it does play a role on your thought process, right? Something 20x. My point is that there's a lot of upside, I think, in a lot of projects that what you don't want to do is like filter things out that are that you know of 20x'd, even though like there is a good case to be made for saying like, if that is in people's minds, anchoring is important. If people are saying, well, this is 20x'd, then those are people that are not buying. So you do make a good point. So I do want to recognize your point is valid, and there's a side for everything, right? There, I'm not saying that I'm the law of the land, but what I do want to say is like, don't overlook what might be a good setup, a good idea, because it's had a large amount of growth. What you do want to look at right now, and it's a primitive thing, is to look at market cap and remind yourself that there's room for a lot of things, because there's a lot of dog shit that is above, that is not, it's vapor. We're trickling down to the lower caps now. So if you're looking at a low cap that's maybe it's already 10x'd and it's a $15 million market cap coin, keep it on your radar still. Of course, all things being equal, if you find the opportunity that is way more favorable, that hasn't pumped, then man, what I'm telling you, what I'm doing is I'm starting to adopt this. It's a stupid method, but hey, it's a bull market, where I'm throwing a minimum amount of money at something that I know is actually a substantial amount of money, but I'm comfortable throwing it and forgetting about it, like forgetting. Because God forbid I look, a year from now and I look at something and it's pumped like 100x, and things again in the last bull market pumped 100x and were still insignificant. And you're like, oh yeah, it pumped 100x. It's total shit. But yeah, it got here from 100x, obviously. Yeah, the math works out, but it's not going anywhere. But you're like, okay, but someone was in there from 100x. I want to forget about those things. I want to turn on my wallet like 6 months from now and be like, oh my God, that paid for, my future kids' college education, because college educations are going to be through the roof. Hopefully by then, system has changed. But just making a reference to that. But great point. I didn't want to get on you for that. You go through the stream and you see comments, and I try to be as real as possible. So you see my initial real response. You go through the stream, you see comments. You don't have any idea context because you don't even know if they say anything yet. But you read something and you react to it right away. So, but that's what we have to beat, right? We don't want to be reactive. We don't want to see something and react to a comment. So just a human being. Everybody, it's been a pleasure. So for those of you that have won the BTC, I'd be more than happy to send that to you. Just go ahead and send me a message on Twitter. And yeah, everyone have a fantastic evening. On behalf of myself and my partner, Josh Rager, just want to thank you for, said that so fast, it sounded like Ragerish. Rager, thanks for tuning in. We're going to do these more frequently. Like we said, we did one last week. I want to do them again 3 days a week. Trade well, guys. All right, exercise proper risk management, trade well. Next time, I won't be holding my favorite pen, so I won't be clicking it during the stream. I'll talk to you soon.